Are you afraid of the final events or the end times? For many people, this this concept suggests that all the things that most people rely on, like stable governments, food systems, financial security, healthcare, personal freedom, even, will basically be broken down and the whole world just fall into absolute chaos. And this is something that really needs to be spoken about for those who like, things predictable and stable and don't like a lot of change. This can be an absolutely terrifying idea, especially when it comes to all these unknown final events. I think most of the time people have this fear. The reason that fear comes around is because they don't know. There's this element of uncertainty. They are in the unknown, they're in the dark, and it's in this way that a lot of their fears really start to be developed. But we need to be trying to figure out, why do we have this fear? How can we deal with this fear? And what we're going to speak about today, and what I'm going to share with you, is God's plan and his answer on how we can escape this fear of the end times, that we can understand the end times and actually prepare for the end events, the final events, because these need to be addressed. They are very scary. A lot of these things are very scary, but the reality is that you don't need to fear. What you need to do is you need to understand. We need to shift from the unknown to the known. We need to shift from this state of absolute fear to understanding the time. And this is why in this whole study series, we're going through this timeline, trying to build it out, because when we have this understanding, when we can see what's happening next, this gives us a level of certainty that we need, and understanding what's happening. So that's not just random things that we're caught so unaware. Now, think about COVID. Okay. Now, hopefully, this doesn't get in trouble for me using that word, but we're not saying anything political about this, just in the sense that when everything started to happen, it happened so suddenly. A lot of people really didn't even expect it, and there was a lot of panic with some people. They're wondering, "Oh, is this the little time of trouble coming? Is this the final events? Are we there? Is things aren't going back to normal ever? What am I going to do? I'm not ready." There was this huge influx or outflux of, the city, or wanting to get to the country. We need to prepare. Preppers kicking in, and all of these things. And then now it's died down again. Because why? Everything seems stable. It's back to normal. It's all fine. But the fact that there was so much panic and uncertainty says two things. One, that people were not expecting that to happen. That's a very important part. And the other one is that people weren't ready for that thing to happen. That's what we want to avoid. We want to be, Jesus says that the day does not take you like a thief in the night, that we are aware, because we want to be part of the wise, people that are watching. We have the light shining in a dark place. We can see ahead, we can see where we're going in the stream of events. So, for all of these last day events that are going to happen, we're going to start laying them out. We need to understand, we need to address why we have these fears, how to prepare, all of this. And there's three main areas that we're going to be sort of focusing on. The first one is intellectual or mental preparation, okay, and mental fear. So we have to find out this area, and then spiritual fear and spiritual preparation. How do we deal with these sort of things? The next one is then physical. So we have these three areas that we're going to be discussing over today's study. Now, I want to remind everyone this is live. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat. And if you have anybody who is scared of the final events, this is the one that you want to share with them. Copy the link, send it to them because they need to hear this. And if they have questions, then they can answer. And we're going to get to as many questions as we possibly can at the end of the study. If you haven't already, go to finalcountdown.amazingdiscoveries.org and join the newsletter. And you can sign up to receive all the study notes. So all the verses and the quotes that we're going to go over in today's study, you'll be able to have ahead of time so you can follow along with the study. Now, we have to remember a couple key things. And I'm going to start with the Bible here. Now, before we reread, I want to just have a quick word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much that you are with us. We need your guidance. We need your spirit. We need wisdom in understanding why we have these fears about the final events and how we can not be fearful and how we can understand what's happening and we can see ahead so that it strengthens our faith. Lord, we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." This sound mind, where is our sound mind? When the Bible's talking about the sound mind and where we do our reasoning powers, this is our frontal lobe. This is also where we either get the seal of God or the mark of the beast, right in our forehead. This is where this sound mind comes from. When we have fear, we basically go into this reactive state. You know, it's like a bear jumps out of the woods at us and we just, we scream or we run or we whatever because we're not expecting it. We don't know how to deal with it and we're just reactive. We need to switch from a state of reactive to actually preparing for these situations and be actively addressing them so that we're not just acting out of fear and have panic, because this is where panic sets in. I didn't expect this to come. I didn't know it'd be coming this fast. This is terrible. What am I going to do? And then everything starts racing. And at that moment, we no longer have a sound mind. We need to be still and know that I am God. He needs to give us guidance. He needs to help us move, but we should be thinking ahead because we're supposed to be people of the book. We need to be studying. We know we have our Bibles. And somehow it's like everything is a shock. Like we don't expect it. We're blindsided by all the events. This is a problem that we are complacent. We're complacent with our situation. We like how it is. We're okay with the status quo, and we hope everything just stays the way it is, at least for as long as possible. And if something happens, well, then I guess I'll deal with it when it happens. This is not the direction that God is trying to give. We need to be proactive. So When we have a sound mind, we are able to exercise our faith. And that's what grounds us. That's what makes us not easily shaken when these different things happen, especially if we're expecting things to happen. That's what gives us the ability to have peace that surpasses all understanding. Everything can be collapsing all around you, but you have a sound mind. We need to be actually exercising that muscle so that it's more and more developed and it gets stronger and stronger, that our faith gets stronger, that this spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. We're gonna get into this a little bit more throughout the study, but these are very important things just to take note of right away. Maranatha, page 160. The events connected with the close of probation. Now, this close of probation, this is something that a lot of people are scared of. They fear, well, I'm not ready for probation to be closed. What happens when probation closes? There's no more mediator. There's, all these things, and the plagues are going to fall. And this is a very scary thing. How can we be ready for the close of probation? Is there even signs for the close of probation? All of these questions that we have to answer. The events connected with the close of probation and the work of preparation for the time of trouble. Now, I want to pause you there again. How many of you knew that there was actually preparation that could be done for the time of trouble? Because most people think probation closes and basically we rely on God. No preparation necessary. So what is going on here? And we're going to go, through some different Bible verses to try and understand this. It says, and the work of preparation for the time of trouble are clearly presented. The events connected with the close of probation are clearly presented. This is shocking because most people have no idea what events are connected with the close of probation or lead to the close of probation. You mean MacKenzie, are you saying that there's actually something that we can see, oh, this is happening, and this is leading straight to the close of probation? Yes. The answer is yes. The events connected with the close of probation are clearly presented. What does that mean? That means that when this was written, they already had been clearly presented. So it's not some modern thing, not some new thing. Here's the problem. Most people today, when they think of, our pioneers and things like this, they do not believe that they understood these things, the final events. But it says that it has been clearly presented, which means that these events have been understood, and they are understood, and they have been presented. If you don't know what the events are that lead to the close of probation, it's not because they're not written in the Bible. It's not because you could not understand. It's because either nobody has told you, you've been relying on an evangelist, a pastor, a speaker, something to give you these things. Because when we look at the book of Daniel and Revelation and some of these other minor prophets, we think they're extremely confusing. They're not supposed to be. The book is clearly titled The Revelation. But if I open to a random chapter in Revelation, you had no study guide, you had no videos to reference or anything like that, could you explain that chapter to me? These are things that we really need to be thinking about. And if the question's no, that's okay. But use this right now as your opportunity to change that. Say, oh, wow, I couldn't do that. Maybe I need to go back and study. And maybe I need to study something that has been written because it's been clearly presented already. And so, well, let's continue the quote for a moment. But multitudes have no more understanding of these important truths than if they had never been revealed. This is the sad state of our church, the world right now, all of Christendom, that these truths are plain. They're laid out. They've been discussed. They've been understood. And it's like nobody has cracked the code. It's totally sealed. When the book of Daniel, it says it'll be sealed until the time of the end. The time of the end came and it was supposed to be opened. Well, it didn't actually open. It only opened in, the mid 1900s, or, just recently when people are finding this out. That's not what it says. If you have people saying, oh, there was a mistake in there, mistake in here, mistake in there, but we're told that it's been clearly presented. And we need to regain this understanding that we literally have lost. Satan watches to catch away every impression that would make them wise unto salvation. So this understanding of the events to the time of trouble and the close of probation, the events that lead up there, have a salvational connection. Why? Because of the close of probation. And the time of trouble will find them unready. Because why? We don't understand the sequence of events. And if you don't know what event it is, how can you prepare for it? If someone says, hey, something's happening tomorrow, and you say, what's happening? Oh, I can't tell you, but make sure you're ready. Where do I need to be? Do I need to go somewhere? Oh, you know what? Just don't even worry about it. Just be ready. This is absolute foolishness. This is not how God works. When God says to get ready, he tells you what for, and he tells you how and when and why and all of these things. The time of trouble will find them unready. This is exactly why we're doing these studies. So that is not the case for anybody watching here, that they don't know what to expect. You will know what to expect because we're talking about it here. Now, here's the problem. If we look, let's go to the book of Revelation. If you have your Bibles, please put an amen in the chat and open them to the book of Revelation. And let's go to chapter 3. Revelation chapter 3. Okay. Let's see here. I don't want to read the whole section here, but let's go to verse 15. Revelation 3, verse 15. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. Now, here's a misunderstanding already, because why? People don't ask the right questions. People don't understand God. That is a huge reason. They read this and they think, oh, God's saying, I wish you were cold or rebellious and, not following God, or hot, hot on fire for him. That is not what this is saying. Okay. And you could do a whole study on this throughout the Bible. If you're lukewarm, you're comfortable. There's no reason to change. It's not high activity. It's just, you're good. When you're on fire, you are just ready to go. You are on fire. Like the people say, I'm on fire for Christ. I'm sharing all the time. I'm doing everything I can. I'm going as fast as possible. Now, if you're cold, if I take you right now, not right now because it's warm outside, in the middle of winter, and I shove you out the door into the snowbank, and you just have a t-shirt on, you're going to be cold. And you're going to know that you're cold. When you're just in your living room and you're just sitting there and enjoying, tepid temperature, you don't really feel yourself all the time. Notice, everything. But when you're freezing cold, wow, I am freezing cold. I have to do something about this. I have to get warmer. So what it's talking about here is that he wishes that you were cold, meaning you realized how poor spiritually you were. That you're cold, you're ice cold. You don't have this passion anymore. You don't have this fervor. You don't have the love of Christ. You don't have the liveliness. And now you're freezing cold. You're like, wow, I am Laodicean. I thought I was one of the wise virgins. I thought I had it figured out. I thought I was doing all the right things. I realized, you know what? I've been asleep. And this is the moment that you realize you need to be hot and you need to change what you're doing. And we're all lukewarm at different points. And we need to be woken up. The problem here is in verse 17, Revelation 3:17. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. Okay. From the quote that we just read, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. And it's talking about the events connected with the close of probation have been clearly presented, but we have no idea what they are. Obviously, it's because we're miserable, poor, blind, and naked. But the problem is we think we're rich and increased with goods. This is Laodicea. I know the second coming. I know Sunday law is coming, etc., mark of the beast. And I can explain to you Daniel 2, Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, Rome, all of this. I can recite it to you. But there's a layer missing. They don't understand the events connected with the close of probation or the work in the preparation for the time of trouble. Any of these things is out of their wheelhouse. Why? Because they're Laodicean. And I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm actually trying to wake you up and shake you, because if you're sleeping, that all the virgins slept, all of them, the righteous ones included, but they need to be woken up. And the only way to wake them is to shake them. There's a mighty shaking that needs to happen to wake people up and say, hey, these things are going to happen. Make sure that you're ready. And remember, we're talking about fear here, because a lot of people are fearful but have no idea where to start. They don't know the events. They don't know how to find out the events. They don't know what events. They don't know how to prepare because of those first 2 points. And this is what we need to clear up. What are these things that are clearly presented? How do we exercise faith? How do we go about doing all of these things? Now, is it okay that we have all sorts of different versions of these events? Is it okay that some people say, well, this and that and the other thing? Here's the problem. We need to make sure our character is right for these final events. This is the utmost importance, is that our character is right. Now, can you be wrong on the events and be right spiritually? Really think about this. Can you not understand the timeline of events, but be right spiritually? This is a very hard question for most people to accept. Not for me to say, not for me even to prove from the Bible. The answer is no. You cannot be mistaken on the events and be right spiritually. Why? Because error never sanctifies. Only truth sanctifies. And the truth changes you. That's what the whole Bible is about. I am the way, the truth, and the life. He didn't say, I am the way and life and no truth. It's okay that our guys are all mistaken on, how I'm coming, when I'm coming, the things that happen before I'm coming. No, it's incredibly important. It's the theme of the entire Bible, the events connected to Jesus' second coming. This is the whole point of the entire Bible. But we're Laodicean and we think we have it all together. And we only want to listen to the modern new ideas, people that, um, people don't like what we're saying. People have a problem with it because they have pet ideas. They have pet people that they're listening to. And I just shake my head because it's like, Lord, are we worshiping people? Are we loving the messenger more than the message? We're getting caught up with the messengers instead of the message. It should be the message that we're in love with. We need to have a love of the what? The truth, not a love of, this is my opinion, that's your opinion. A love of, well, we understand this differently and that's okay. It's not okay. How can two walk together unless they're agreed? And if we're not agreed, how are we walking together? How are we going in the same place if we don't even agree where we're going? This is a huge misconception. And the reason that Laodicea is poor, blind, and naked is because they're not studying for themselves. They're not studying the Bible. They're not studying for love of the truth. They're studying because they love to be smart. They love to be able to have high intellectual conversation. They love to be connected with popular people. They love to be doted on, whatever it is, other than the truth. We need to get back to only a love of the truth. And that's all that matters. That's all we focus on. We have how much to fear? Nothing to fear for the future. Nothing to fear for the future. Except as we shall forget the way the Lord has led us, not will lead us, has led us, and his teachings, and his teaching in our past history. So we have nothing to fear unless we forget how he led us in the past and his teaching in our past history. This is a very uncomfortable thing for a lot of people because they don't put any value on our past teachings or on how God led us in the past. They actually think that he almost didn't lead us and that there was just a billion mistakes that need to be fixed. And now finally, in the 1900s, we finally fixed all these problems. But we have more disunity than we ever have been ever had. Unfortunately, most people don't know that because they have no idea about our history. They have no idea. We need to fix that. We talked about this. We had a 14-part series, Judgment Day series, study series, going through a lot of the last couple 100-year history. I highly recommend everybody go and check that out. Go to judgmentdaydocumentary.com, and that'll take you through the history that you have never heard before. I guarantee you, if you haven't seen that series, there's going to be things in there that you've never heard of, that you would never even dreamed of, that actually are 100% fact. And you need to understand these things. This isn't just personal. This is our collective. This is the old paths that we are getting away from. And this is a serious concern. But if men refuse to search for the truth, as for hid treasure, If the mind is pleased with the theories of error, people sometimes are extremely pleased with the theories of error. And it sounds good. Well, this famous guy says it and that famous guy says it. And, we're all, all conservatives here or whatever we like to tell ourselves. The soul will remain in darkness. Why? Because error never sanctifies. And error means the lack of light, which is darkness, because truth is light. And if you don't understand the correct line of events, you are in darkness. The course of the life, the development of the character will be corrupted by false sentiments. If we have a false understanding of the events, we will have a false growth of character. It'll go in the wrong direction. Error never sanctifies. It can do no good. And how full of darkness is the soul that receives error as truth? That is a terrifying statement. If we receive error as fact, and I mean, over the course of the last almost 30 years, the amount of error in the world, and I mean, you can go down through all these conspiracy theories and all the, you know, propaganda and everything else. So much deception in the world. And when we see, let's say you have a certain idea and you see other people deciding with the system, if I can put it like that, you think, wow, how do they even believe that? How are they even thinking that this is okay? And uh, it's mind-boggling. But this is exactly the state of Laodicea, that they're falling in love with error. Why? Because it's less scary. But here's the problem. It's not actually less scary. They just think it's less scary. Because what they think the truth is, they think is scarier. They think it's more undesirable than the lie. So, oh, don't tell me. And, just don't tell me. For those who are trying to be strict with their diet, and you're eating something and then someone grabs the package and you bought this, let's say you bought a package without reading the label, and then someone picks it up and they're looking and they're like, oh, and you think, oh, what is in the ingredients here? What am I not supposed to be? Don't tell me. And then you just shove it in your mouth and try and, because you don't want to know. You feel like knowing is worse than not knowing. And this is absolutely absurd. What if, this isn't the case, but it is the case in the situations we're talking about. What if there was cyanide as one of the ingredients, or Agent Orange or something like this? It would definitely be better to know that's there and not finish eating whatever you were eating than to say, oh, don't tell me. But instead of having a love of the truth, we have a love of our own pleasure. Error as truth, and shapes his course of action in accordance with it. We start to be okay with wrongs. We start to be okay with things that are evil. And we lose this sense of the sinfulness of sin. It changes our character. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. This is not God's way. But a lot of people have this idea. And so when truth comes along, they almost treat it like an enemy because it feels against them. Well, how do I not know this by now? I know I'm like the best Bible student ever. As we near the close of this world's history, the prophecies relating to the last days especially demand our study. As we're getting closer, we need to be studying more. Not studying less, studying more. The last book of the New Testament scriptures is full of truth that we need to understand. Need to. And how can we make this statement, need to? If we go to the very first chapter of the last book, first verse, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servant things which must shortly come to pass, also known as prophecy. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. So this is from Jesus. And everybody says, well, all we need is the love of Jesus. You don't know the love of Jesus unless you know the love letter that he wrote. And that is specifically the book of Revelation, so that you know the roadmap. You know where the bumps are. You know where the pitfalls are. You know where all these things are. Verse 2, who bear record of the word of God and of the testimony of Jesus Christ and of all things that he saw. Verse 3, blessed is he that readeth, and they that keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. Now, here's the amazing thing. It says, blessed is he that readeth and keepeth. That means there's something to do. That means prophecy is not just intellectual. It is practical. It is an action. It is something to do, something to be, something to change you. And that's how your character changes, because it demands that you are something different than you were the day before. Every piece of prophecy should change you for the better. You should have a shift in your character. The last book of the New Testament scripture is full of truth that we need to understand. Satan has blinded the minds of many so that they have been glad of any excuse for not making the revelation their study. Oh, well, it's too hard. It's too complicated. I don't know how to do Greek and Hebrew. I don't know, etc., etc., etc. There is no excuse. God will show you the truth if you ask. Ask and you shall receive. The problem is we don't want to get the truth where it is. The events connected to the close of probation have been clearly presented. But we don't want to get it from back there. We want to get it from someone now. The problem is everybody now is sleeping. So you need to find it from someone who is awake. But those people might be dead, which means you have to do some reading. But I don't like to read, etc., etc., etc. I'll tell you, this is something personal about me. I did not like reading. Okay? Not at all. I'm dyslexic, so reading is not fun. It's difficult, but I've learned to love it. Why? Because there's so much rich knowledge that we can obtain by reading, but people are lazy. They want to watch a video. They want to, and that would be a lot easier for me to say, well, it's hard to read, it's a struggle, and all these things. There's no excuse. I'm such a slow reader and slow to comprehend reading. I'm not a text person. So it takes me more time than other people to really follow. But that's no excuse not to understand. God's given us so much time. I mean, life, the world isn't over yet, but we're acting as if it's over and, there's nothing even more to study. And, we've got it all figured out. This is absolutely untrue. There's so many things. There was a point in my life that I thought I had it figured out pretty well. I know all the events, I know all this, I know all that. But then I realized there was layer upon layer upon layer in Daniel Revelation that I had never, ever seen before, and other books in the Bible. And all this got opened up. And it's not because I was so smart or such a great reader or a speed reader so I could get through all this information quickly. Had nothing to do with that, other than I wanted to know the truth. And I wanted to make it my course of study because we're living in the last days. I want to understand this fully so that I'm ready. And I want to be able to share this with others, which you should too. Even if you don't care for yourself, you should care about others. You should care about your family. You should care about your friends. But Christ, through his servant John, has here declared what shall be in the last days. This is the thing that we're talking about that everyone's fearful of. And he says, blessed is he that readeth about the last days. Blessed is you who talks about the last days. And they that hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written therein. If you understand the last days, you are blessed. Why? Because you know what to do. Because your character is going to be changed. This is going to be part of the abundant blessing that comes, that your character shifts. You become a different person than you were before. And I've become a different person than I was before. We all should. You know, some people think that's a negative when someone says, wow, you're so different. And maybe if you've become a terrible person, but if you're doing what God asks and you're being humble, you're not being stuck up, you're not being prideful, not being like, oh, I know more than everybody else in the room. That's not the point of this. Then we should say, praise the Lord, because who I was not who I wanted to be. And who I am right now is not who I should be. Always striving to be better and to be learning and developing our character. It's like a plant. At each stage, you can be perfect because you're in full obedience to what you know. And then you keep growing, keep growing, keep growing. You might be, have a perfect understanding of certain things in Revelation, and then you build on that and build on that and build on that. I can guarantee you that you can read the book of Revelation till Jesus comes. If you read it every single day, you're going to find something new and exciting and amazing about that book. And I don't say that for cliche and to sound cheesy, because a lot of pastors and preachers and evangelists would sound extremely cheesy to say, oh, you can never exhaust the Bible. I used to think that was a crazy thought. But as I studied and as I looked closer and I studied harder myself, I highly recommend getting these study bookmarks. It will really, really help you. We're told that using Miller's rules is the way that we should study. This is what unlocked everything. And these are called Miller's rules just because he formulated them, not because they are some human's idea. Each of these rules has Bible verses to go along with them. When you use the Bible to interpret the Bible and not man to interpret the Bible, the whole Bible just explodes open. And it's this amazing, beautiful tapestry that you can dig into. We're going to be getting into a lot of these details as we go through the studies, but we need to understand these things in the book of Revelation. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Well, that seems kind of harsh, but that's that's true, right? If we're looking ahead, what is going to happen? A prudent man foreseeth the evil, and he hideth himself. That means he's making provision, he's protecting, he's planning. But the simple, it's okay. When it comes, it'll come, and they're punished for it because they didn't they didn't plan, they didn't make provision, they didn't do any of these things. This is called presumption, not faith. Presumption and faith are two totally different things. Presumption and faith, they are not the same thing. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. So these wise virgins, what are they doing? They're going to the ant. They're not being sluggard. Well, maybe they were a sluggard. And now they're considering the ant and they're trying to be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat means food, in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. That's a very fascinating thing that is written here. Why is it emphasizing this? Remember, 1 Corinthians 10, 1 Corinthians 10, verse 11. Now all these things happen unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. So how does this verse in Proverbs apply to us at the end of the world? Well, it talks about the ant, having its food for the summer, and gathereth the food in the harvest for the winter. Now, this is a direct application for us because if we see winter is coming, if we see the certain final events that are coming, we need to make preparation for those events. Here's the thing. Let's say we're living back 200 years ago, 300 years ago. No refrigerators, no big grocery stores, all of this. You have to grow your food. So there's one guy over here, and he sees his nice apple tree, and he goes and cuts it down. And the other man sees him. He's like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I wanted some apples." And he's like, "And the tree's tall, and it's too hard to get to, so I just cut the tree down. It makes it easier to pick." And he's like, "But you're not going to have apples for next year." "Oh, next year will come when next year will come." And then he sees the other guy is letting his garden die, and the one man is getting his harvest, and he's gathering in his grain and his beans and his fruit and all of his things, and he's preparing for winter. And he says to the other man, "Hey, winter's coming. You're going to starve to death if you don't have food." And he says, "Hey, stop fear mongering. This is just, you're trying to scare me." It might seem ridiculous, this example, but this is exactly the point. If we know that something is coming and we do nothing to prepare, don't be surprised when it doesn't go well. Who is the one that should be fearful? The one who didn't prepare, or the one who knew what was coming and was confident that he was doing all that he could to prepare? This is the peace that passes all understanding, because God tells you ahead more than anybody else on earth can know, even the elite who are writing the script. And you can say, "Well, MacKenzie, don't you know, haven't you heard of this Palantir and all this kind of stuff, this stuff that Trump is doing?" And the surveillance and everything else. There's no place to hide. Are you using like the government, Satanists, elites as an excuse to just like not listen to God's counsel? Is that like what we're doing now? We need to get with the program here that our God is stronger than their God. And that God, when he tells us ahead and tells us and asks us to do things, he doesn't ask us to do things that are going to be null and void. So if we're need to prepare here for something coming, he's going to make sure that has its effect. I mean, I'm going to get into this in a little bit here, but how long? This is continuing the same chapter. How long wilt thou sleep? Now we see this connection to the sleeping virgins and all of this. O sluggard, when wilt thou arise out of thy sleep, Laodicea? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. Just curl up and, just dream it all away. So shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man. Your poverty is going to come as a thief comes to break in, and he's armed with a gun to take whatever's available. If you don't prepare, poverty is coming. If you don't prepare for the winter, you will starve. Just like the ant. These are principles that we need to be thinking about. Fear comes from not preparing. By preparing, we become ready. Now, here we have the different layers of what we spoke about right at the start. We have spiritual, mental, or intellectual, and physical. Now, we might have spiritual fears, which is, I don't know if I'm right with God. Maybe he's not forgiven me. Maybe I don't know if he's going to help me, if he's going to protect me. I don't know if he's hearing me. I don't know if, all of these things. We have these spiritual fears that, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can be ready. My character is so bad. All of these things. Okay. And a lot of these spiritual fears are alleviated through one thing, and that one thing is obedience. If we're obedient, there's no reason for fear. If we're obedient to what God is asking, we should have a sound mind. We should be able to say, Lord, you asked, I did. And now I leave the rest with you. And then this is where faith kicks in, and we have to practice our faith. If we are not being obedient, we have reason to fear because we're not being obedient to God, and he can't bless that. But if we are doing what he asks us to do, the rest is in his control. There's nothing else for us to do. Now, we need to replace these doubts with promises from God's word. We need to replace them with the Bible text showing us that, faith is the essence of things hoped for. This is, what is faith? What is righteousness by faith? Noah was considered righteous because of his obedience. And that was righteousness by faith. Faith that what God said, the events that will happen leading up to the close of probation for that world was going to happen. So he was obedient and God protected him because of it. Now, if he did not build an ark, he has reason to fear, and God would not have protected. But since he was obedient, God protected him. Then we have mental fear or intellectual fear. And this is alleviated and removed by arming ourselves and acquiring knowledge. If we have knowledge and we have understanding, then our fear will go away. For example, if someone is having a heart attack and you don't know what to do, you will panic. You have no idea. It's scary. But if you've dealt with something like this before, I worked with a lot of different people on health, natural remedies, people who have been extremely sick, and it's fearful. It's scary. But when you've had experience with things before, it's less fearful, especially if you know what to do and if you've seen the benefits and if you've seen things happen, it's not so fearful anymore. So, our mental state of fear, if we can access the knowledge needed and get this understanding, then that fear can go away. Now, if we have the spiritual fear fixed and we have the mental fears fixed, what is going to alleviate all of that in one package is the physical obedience. And this is where the physical aspect comes in, that we actually start preparing. So, okay, for instance, if you're allergic to bees or something like this, maybe you want to keep charcoal around. Um, I'm allergic to bees. I still work with honeybees all the time because I absolutely love it. And I just keep charcoal on me. And I have no fear of the bees because I know what to do and I'm foreseeing it. So the other day, I was helping some people set up their hives for the first time. And they're asking, they've never done this before and they're asking questions, and I'm going over there and I have my suit, and um they have I think they had a full suit, someone else had a half suit, and then the others didn't have any suits. And I said that these bees, they should be great, they should be totally fine. I'm wearing my full suit because I'm allergic. And they're like, why are you here? And I was like, it's okay. I brought charcoal. If something happens, I just, you know, drink some, put some on this thing, and we go back to work. And they're like, wow, this is crazy. But I dealt with it before, and I know I'm foreseeing it. It's not, oh, I got stung. What do I do? So you need to prepare. If you're prepared, there's no reason to panic. So this is where that physical preparation, these little things make a huge difference. And just the fact, if you have the knowledge of how to deal with something, changes it as well. If you know that you know how to deal with something, it's very calming in that situation. And you can go from the shock of whatever it is back to baseline extremely quickly and say, okay, Lord, direct me here. You've trained me in this. I have anticipated this. I was the prudent man. I was looking, planning ahead. And this is what we need to do. We need to be thinking and planning. And what's the step-by-step process to actually prepare? The heart of the prudent getting knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. This is the crux of the matter. Are we seeking the knowledge? Are we looking for the knowledge that we need to be secure with the final events that are happening? Now, here's the bigger problem. If you don't know the final events, how can you prepare? So this is the next step. So we talked about fear. We don't need to fear because God is not a God of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And we don't need to panic because we have faith. We're apparently Christians here, and everything that happens is for God's glory. And I've had a lot of unfortunate things happen in my life. And if we go to Romans, this was always my favorite verse. Romans 8:28. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Everything works together for good. So if it happens, don't complain. Say, okay, Lord, what did you want me to learn here? Okay, Lord, there must be another opportunity. What do I need to do? How do I need to grow? How do I need to be better? All of these things are preparing us for something. The experiences I had when I was younger, I never knew that those would come in handy today. But they do. So this is why we need to be really asking God, what is it that you want me to do? And what knowledge do I need in order to go through the events that are coming? And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. And this is something people won't understand. How are you so calm? How are you so this? Why are you, you don't get flustered? Because the peace that passes all understanding, because you have entire faith. You've seen this before. You've seen in his word. You know what to expect. Nothing surprising to you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. And now I have told you before it come to pass. God tells us so that we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be fearful to talk about the final events. Why? Because actually talking about it, becoming aware, and then doing something is what's going to alleviate our fear. And I understand. Some people may say, well, I'm disabled, or I'm elderly, or I'm financially, I can't do this. All of these things. God makes sure every one of his servants is taken care of. Emphatically. If we are striving and we are praying earnestly every single day for his leading, he will not leave you without a solution outside of the ark. There was nobody so disabled they couldn't get on the ark. Even if Noah had to push them up there in a wheelchair, it doesn't matter. Now, will some people be laid to rest before some of the troubles happen? Sure, but this is not our control, and this is not something we plan on. And God is such a God of love and mercy, and he sees every single person and their situation. We need to be willing to live and die for Christ. Even if we think it's impossible, it's all possible with God. We're also told that we're going to see the little kids helping the elderly people over the rocks when we're fleeing in the wilderness. So this is an incredible thing. We're supposed to be pulling together, studying together, working together, helping each other. A lot of people are on the total wrong track. I'm going to get a little bit on a side tangent here, but I want to walk through some of the things that everyone can do to start preparing and start their process of getting ready for these final events. So I'm going to go to the whiteboard in just a moment. This is really important, a really important conversation, because a lot of people are so scared they don't even know where to start, and they just give up. They throw their hands in the air. Oh, I can't do it. I'm just, nothing's going to happen. We need to think of everything possible. People get a diagnosis from the doctor and they think that's the end of the world. Give up. I've seen people with stage 4 cancer using God's healing methods 100% clean. I've seen people that you would never even think possible and be healed with prayer and with using God's methods. When we trust God, He works miracles. If you think it's not possible for me to be in the country for XYZ, God says, ask me. He says, test me. And you say, Lord, I want this. I want to be ready. And He is going to show you things that you never, ever thought possible and give you ways that you never, ever could imagine. He has 1,000 ways that we know not. Christ calls us to walk with Him in this world in the path of humble, trustful obedience, which will secure a pure, holy, happy life, which we will choose liberty in Christ or bondage and tyranny in the service of Satan. It is our privilege to have a calm, close, happy walk with Jesus every day we live. We need not be alarmed if this path of liberty is laid through conflicts and sufferings. This is a very crazy thing to say. We need not be alarmed if this path of liberty is laid through conflict and suffering. Nobody attains a lot by doing little. The liberty we shall enjoy will be the more valuable because we made sacrifices to obtain it. The peace which passeth knowledge will cost us battles with the powers of darkness, struggles severe against selfishness and inward sins. Battles severe with the powers of darkness. This is how we get peace, is we fight the good fight. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be conflicts. There's going to be suffering. There's going to be a denial of self like you've never seen before. The victories gained daily through preserving untiring effort in well-doing will be precious through Christ, who hath loved us, who gave himself for us that he might redeem us from all iniquity and purify unto himself a peculiar people zealous of good works. The excellence of Christ we should seek to obtain. In the face of temptation, we should school ourselves to firm endurance, which will not provoke one murmuring thought. Although we may be weary in toiling and in fighting the good fight of faith. It is a fight, it is a struggle to have that faith. And when everything is being tossed around and we are scared, be still and know that I'm God. Take a breather, pray, say, Lord, what am I to do? And we fight those urges to keep this frontal lobe of ours intact so that God can communicate. That's how he communicates with us. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear. Because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. Perfect love casteth out fear. There is no fear in love. What does that even mean? Let's say your loved one is drowning. There's no more fear to jump in to try and save them because the love of that person casts out fear. It's like you see a wild animal, you go running out there. You do what needs to be done. Fear is not even an option anymore. If there's a burning building, not saying that it's a wise thing to do, but you don't even have that fear anymore because this thing is propelling you so strong. And if we have the love for souls that Christ did, our fear is going to be gone too of the final events. If we are being obedient and we are doing what he's asked us to do, we don't need to have fear because we know he is faithful. And if we are faithful, he is faithful. And we all we need is faith. And we continue and we do what he asks us to do. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. Because as he is, so are we in this world. 1 John 4:17. Boldness in the day of judgment. Now, this is interesting because we're talking about the time of trouble when the judgments are being poured out. And we can have boldness in this time if we have love made perfect and our fear is cast away. So now that we dealt with these three things that we spoke about at the start and we have no more fear, we can be bold in the day of judgment because that we know we're obedient and we know that God is faithful and there's nothing else to fear. Noah, so here's the thing. Obedience and faith, because I keep bringing this up. Noah didn't, when God said there's going to be a flood, and he was asked to build an ark. He didn't question, so you're saying the whole world's going to be covered in water. That means that it's covering every mountain and hill, which means it's going to be yay deep, and there's going to be no breaks, and it's going to be a storm, and the heavens are going to open up, and the earth beneath is going to open up, and it's going to be super tempestuous, and it's going to be blowing and storming and everything else that we've never even seen before. I'm pretty sure this ark is not going to make it. I mean, what if, well, the water's rising, like we smash into a mountain? What then? I'm pretty sure that we're not going to survive this. This little wooden boat, that's what you're telling me to make here. I'm pretty sure that's not strong enough. You know, the government has a lot more powerful weapons and their surveillance and all of these things. Um, so I'm not going to be able to even, be self-sufficient because they're just going to take everything, own nothing, and be happy. I mean, we all know this. And, you know, I won't be able to pay my taxes and everything else. This is the reasoning that Noah did not have. And this is the reason that a lot of people do have. They would reason God away. God said, build a boat. He didn't say, I'm going to make you float. He said, build a boat and I will make the boat float. And he says, prepare for the final events and I will protect you in your obedience. He didn't say, I'm just going to protect you in this magical bubble wherever you are in your full disobedience. And this is presumption. This is the man who didn't get food for winter. This is the ant. I mean, we still have ants. Obviously, they're still preparing. Honeybees, all these creatures are doing what needs to be done. And God's people are the laziest bunch because they don't want to do anything. They want God to do it all. They're like, Lord, if I have to lift a finger, forget it. If I have to grow my own food, no way. If I have to sell my nice house and my nice boat and my nice thing, I can't even comprehend it. I mean, we need to have obedience, but the only thing that we have is excuses. We have a boatload of excuses instead of a boat full of animals and food. If we have, we need to sacrifice everything. What if I lose my job? Well, you might lose your job if you quit your job to move. What if I don't have as much money? What if I can't find another job? What if I can't pay for this? What if I don't have the skills? I've never done this before. I've never farmed before. I've never, prepared or done any of these things before. I can't start now. I'm 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it is. God didn't ask Noah, hey, you're like the youngest guy around. So now that you're the youngest guy around, I'm going to ask you to build this giant boat. No, Noah was not the youngest guy around. He was past middle age. He was not in his prime when God said, you need to do this boat and you need to become a zoologist and you need to become, a food preserver and a water purifier and everything else that he needed to do inside of that ark in order to survive 370 days. This is a totally different level than a lot of us are willing to go through. We need to, now, here's the thing. Do we love God enough? And unfortunately, sometimes we count the cost in the wrong direction. We don't love God enough to sacrifice everything. We're told that Noah put all that he had. So that means every penny he had went into the ark. No vacations, no fancy stuff, no any of this. It went in his pocket, and then it went out of his pocket into the ark. Look, do we love God enough to be burned at the stake? We don't love God enough to grow a garden. How you think you're going to love God enough to be burned at the stake, like a lot of the martyrs did? And God's not even asking for that. He's asking for us to prepare and learn skills and do things. It's like we need to, if we want our fear to go away and we want our love made perfect and we want our characters changed, we just need to be obedient to the things that he's asking us. I mean, there's so many people who are worried about what everyone else is doing. I mean, it's unbelievable that people, well, okay. Here's what we need to do. And this is as a people generally. Stop looking at others and start looking at ourselves. What is it that I need to do today to be ready for the events coming? What is it that I need to do to be ready for the closing events? Because that's what's going to remove our fear. We're going to have fear unless we're in complete obedience. And once we're in complete obedience and surrendering all, I'm not talking about surrendering your tithe. This is petty already. If we're on tithe discussion, debating whether God deserves his tithe or not, we're not even close here. We're talking about surrendering every penny that we have. Everything we make is not ours. We're here on borrowed time and borrowed funds, and everything that we have is to further the message and be obedient to what God said. If it's not for the three angels' message, if it's not for preparing for the events, don't do it. I mean, it's not bad to enjoy life. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if you're putting your enjoyments in front of God and in front of preparing, in front of everything else, your priorities are messed up. I mean, we have to give up all. I surrender all. How many times have we sang that song and it's been a lie? We said, All to Jesus, I surrender. But we're kind of like the rich young ruler who says, I keep all your commandments. I've read everything. I know everything. I'm a smart guy. And Jesus says, well, how about you go and sell everything and follow me? And he's like, I don't know if I can do that. Because, Jesus, I need to do this so that I can support the work, and I need to have money, and I need, because someone's got to donate and someone's got to this. And, there's, we will work our excuses until the cows come home. And I used to actually be able to say that saying because the cows weren't coming home because I didn't have cows. Now I have cows. So now the cows are coming home, and usually it's every single day. Um, usually it's multiple times a day because they're my pets and they like pets. We can use every excuse under the book to not be obedient. And that's a scary thing, to use the Bible and God as our excuse not to obey God. This is horrible. Great controversy. Page 622.3. The time of trouble such as never was is soon to open upon us, and we shall need an experience. What's an experience? Is it head knowledge? It's something that you have felt, that you've been through, that you've done, which we do not now possess, and which many are too indolent to obtain. So this is something that just randomly happenstance upon you. This is something you seek out. This because you're too lazy. There's sleep. They're sluggards. And this is all of us. We should be seeking out these experiences that are going to prepare us for the time of trouble. This is the preparation we need. We have to be striving to prepare for all of these things. But if you don't even understand the time of trouble, how are you going to know how to prepare for the time of trouble? Even though they've been clearly presented, which is a totally separate thing, which we're going to cover, we have no idea where to go. And we're not even interested in preparing for it because we don't need to, because our bread and water is going to be sure and everything else, and we don't have anything to do. It is often the case that trouble is greater in anticipation than in reality. But this is not true of the crisis before us. The most vivid presentation cannot reach the magnitude of the ordeal. In that time of trial, every soul must stand for himself before God. Though Noah, Daniel, and Job were in the land, as I live, saith the Lord God, they shall deliver neither son nor daughter. They shall but deliver their own souls by their righteousness. And that righteousness was what? Obedience. Obedience to what God asked. Okay. Before I finish up with some of these slides, I'm going to go to the whiteboard and we're going to break some of this down. And I have some questions. You know what? Before I go to the whiteboard, or I'll go to the whiteboard and then I need to figure out how I can see some of these chats here. Okay. What for you guys? Now, a little bit about me, just a tiny bit. I have been studying the final events in detail, like really studying for probably a good 17 years. Close, I would say 17 years for sure. I started young. I wasn't born a Seventh-day Adventist, but My parents became Adventists fairly early. And then by the time I was 10, I had got the spirit of prophecy. And by the time I was probably 12 latest, I had learned about this thing. Actually, just a moment here. I need to adjust something on my screen. I apologize. Just give me 1 second here. I realized we were going to have a problem with the whiteboard. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. Okay. I learned about this thing called Sunday law. And this was fascinating to me. It was in Revelation 13, verse 17, there was something called the no buy, no sell. And this has captivated my mind since that time. And ever since then, I have been on a quest to find how to survive this event. How to survive. I'm going to write this here. Survive. With everyone online, I want to ask a couple questions. What are your biggest fears / concerns about the final events? I want to know because I want to answer this. I know we have quite a few questions here, and maybe what I'll do is I'll answer some of these questions. We'll come back to this. One of the things I want to do in this study still, and I know we've already been going a little while, is to give you a plan, sort of the ABCs of where to start. Because this is going to help to alleviate some of those fears, like we were mentioning, is if you have somewhat of a roadmap. And many of you, you've never done this before. You've never farmed. You've never, even thought about preparing for the no buy, no sell. And the thing is, when God told Noah to build an ark, what did Noah need to do? He needed to build an ark. And the only way that Noah was going to survive was to prepare for the flood that was coming. If he didn't prepare, God could not have helped him. So how can we prepare and build our ark for this time called the no buy, no sell? This is a very important question. So what are some of your fears and concerns about the coming events? And what are some things that you think that you should prepare for that maybe you don't know how to prepare for? I'm going to try and pull up here. I think this is going to work. Moving some things around so that I can see the whiteboard and also see any of your guys' messages here. Okay. Let's see. What are you guys saying? And I'll get to some of the longer questions. If we still want to pull those to the side, not just these fears and concerns, but some of the more detailed questions, pull those. Okay, great. So FEMA was one. I'm assuming that was a fear. FEMA slash camps. That's definitely a fear. um, some people said torture, imprisonment, deprivation. Oh, sorry, everything's slowing down here. Okay, I can't keep up with all the messages. Okay, someone said here, one of the fears is not being in the country. Set up with help. That's a very interesting one. Okay. Okay. My computer is a little bit upset with me because I'm trying to do too many things at once here. Sure. Yeah. If you can tell me some. Okay. Not enough to be saved? Okay. What else?
I don't know the wild plants in my area.
Don't know the wild edibles.
Family and friends turning against me.
Family slash friends going against.
Physical injuries that they have to deal with.
Okay. Physical injuries. Age. I'm sorry, this is a bit slow right now, maybe for some of those. Being alone. Okay. I'm sure there's many more. Let's okay. Taking kids away. Many more. I mean, we could go on for a long time. So these are some of the fears and concerns that some of you have. And very valid ones. And how we need to deal with this is understanding the chain of events and what we can do to alleviate these things as much as possible or entirely alleviate them. Okay? If you knew for a fact that something you could do could stop one of these things, would you do it? And if you would do it, then that's great because this is where we need to start. Okay. The big question is, oh, I had a glitch in my board. What to do? This is where we need to start. And in order to understand what we need to do, we need to understand the sequence of events that are going to happen. And then we're going to be able to address some of these different issues that people are concerned about. So again, like always, we are here right at the beginning. there is stages to some of these process. And I'm going to put this kind of as like a big step here. Oh, like this. And we're going to put no buy, no sell right here. Now, what are the things that are going to lead up to this? There is independent stages that lead up to this final step. There's going to be fines. There's going to be imprisonment, which we talked about here, one of the fears. There's going to be inducements, but I'm going to write it bribery. Okay? And then we're going to enter this full-blown no buy, no sell time frame. And this is going to carry on. We don't know exactly for how long. It's not going to be a day. It's not going to be a week. It's not going to be a month. This is going to be a process. Fortunately, we're told ahead of time. And I know everybody's probably panicking saying, I'm not ready. And I know some of you said, I'm not ready. I'm in this. I don't know how to get in the country. I don't know how to do these things. I don't have help. We're going to give you some step-by-step things that you can start doing in order to alleviate some of those fears. Okay? The no buy, no sell time frame. And then we have an event that happens right here. And this is the, well, I'll spell it out instead of writing it short. Close of probation. Now, at that point, everyone's case is decided. Everyone who's on God's side is on God's side. Everyone who is not takes the mark of the beast and is not on God's side. This is a very important date. Event, I should say. We don't know the date, but we know the event. And there is things that lead up to this event. So just like there was steps from no buy, no sell, there is steps that lead up to the close of probation. That we're going to cover in another study. Right now, we're going to focus on some other things. Then after this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 last plagues. And this is called the time of trouble. And we read today that we actually need to prepare for the time of trouble, which is very fascinating because most people do not think that we actually need to prepare, and there's nothing to prepare, but there is. Just give it a second. It's going a little bit slow. Right, there we go. Okay. Now, if you decide to get ready for an event, when the event starts, it's too late. You can't prepare in the crisis. You have to prepare before the crisis, like the Bible said. You stock up for winter. The prudent man, he makes sure that he has provisions set aside so that when this happens, he's ready for it. So we have a time frame here leading up to each of these steps. Okay? And we're going to call this in the green the preparation time. And there's going to be a lot of people saying it's too late. There's no time to learn all these things. Financially, we can't do this. We can't sell and buy and blah, blah, blah. Nonsense. And I'm sorry if I offend one of you who's saying that, but this is not true. We are in the preparation time right now, which means that you have time. Okay? I'm not saying you have oodles of time, but you have time. And God will bless your effort in getting ready. So do not think it's too late. Because here's the thing. I'm going to have to move this over actually. So we're going to grab all of this because I need more space. We're going to slide this to the side. If we go back in time to here, 1888, there was something here that started, and it was out of the cities. That's when the out of the cities message actually began. And I don't know if you've recognized it, but a lot of people have lived and died since then. The out of the cities message. Why? Because people didn't prepare. God's people weren't ready for the final events because the final events are going to be unlike anything we've ever seen before. It's a time of trouble such as never was, and we need to prepare for that time. Thankfully, God is so merciful that he is giving time for his people to prepare for all of these things. So do not be fearful. Do not be dismayed because God is going to help each and every one of you to get ready as long as you want it. As long as you want it and you're striving for obedience. So this is our preparation time right here. And we need to prepare for each of these events. And we need to think about each of these events. Now, Paul, for instance, he was taken in prison and he eventually died doing what, preaching the word, but his time was shortened. We're actually told his time was shortened because he wasn't being careful about certain things. We're not supposed to be foolish and just, be like Alex Jones and go screaming everywhere. That's not what we're called to do. We're supposed to stand up for right, but we don't need to draw unnecessarily negative attention because we're not supposed to be aggressive. We're not going out here, guns blazing. So if we see these events and we need to start preparing for them, and this is our, most people's starting point. They're in a city somewhere and they need to figure out how are we going to get from here, over to the nice countryside over here. And we're going to put a nice sun shining because there's always beautiful sun shining in the country. How do we do this transition when maybe we don't have money? So this is not in our favor. Maybe we're elevated in age. We're high numbers. Maybe we are disabled. Maybe we have, any other issue. We need to pray and we need to really ask God to show us exactly where to go and to cross paths with someone that can help us. That's what we need to do is we need to ask for help. And maybe we don't know anybody right now who's able to do that, but God will show as long as we're praying. He will not leave one person being affected by these things who wants to be free from them. Now, I'm going to shift the conversation over to those who have the means to actually do something. And this is more of you than you think. Let's say you're renting, okay, an apartment in a high-rise building. And this is you right over here. Well, one thing that you can do is you can find a little town. And you can switch locations over to this little town. And all around this little town is nice forests. okay? Because you're trying to be in the country. So you're trying to get closer, right? Be away from the large cities. Because one of the events, and let's go back to our timeline here, that's going to start happening from here forward is, and we're going to go over this in other studies, showing exactly these things, destruction of cities. This is something that is coming, and it's going to happen as a catalyst for some of these other events. Because okay, we have chaos, we have these things, we don't let a good catastrophe or crisis go unutilized, and we're going to use this thing. So we want to get out of the cities as fast as possible. I mean, you can look at all these different preppers and guys, and they have their bug out bag. And, when something happens, you have X amount of time to either get out or do whatever or hunker down. We're dealing with a similar scenario, but it is the Bible version. The devil has his versions of everything, prepping, and ours is called country living and preparation in country living and being self-sufficient. So move from your apartment and go to a little town and start spending time in the country. Get familiar with the country. Get used to the country. Because here's the thing. If you're in the country and people are fear of nature, people have a fear of nature, but the bears and the animals and everything's gonna kill me. A deer might kill me, bird might kill me. I know people like this. This is God put us in a Garden of Eden in nature. That's where we started. And never, okay, just to clarify, because the Out of the Cities started in 1888, but that's not because before 1888 we're supposed to be in the city. We were never supposed to be in the city. That message just came back. Look at Abraham. Look at all the people in the Bible who were faithful. They were country folk living in the mountains, in the hills, raising their food, doing their thing. This is how you get close with God. Jesus went to the mountains every morning so that he could be with God. When you're in nature, you have a connection to God that you don't get when you're in the city. So get away from that and start renting somewhere else. And you can find a job in that town. You can find a job for a ministry. A lot of, you can work from home. You can do these things. Think about what God wants you to do and how you can be obedient to that thing, and he's going to give you an answer. Okay. I just I missed this a while ago. I think people think I'm younger than I am, maybe. I've been doing this for 17 years. It's not because I was 5 when I started this. So they have a fear of nature. I grew up right by the forest, playing outside, seeing bears all the time, wild animals. I used to go follow skunks around in the bush. That might seem strange to a lot of people, but if you're not in their business and not scaring them or teasing them or anything else, they're totally fine. And, they're not going to spray you if you're not making them upset. So spend time in the country. And eventually, maybe you find a little house that's in the forest. Or maybe you have maybe you found a property or something. And I'm not telling everybody what they should do, but even if you have to get a loan for this thing that you know you can pay off in a certain amount of time. Here's the thing. People have been saying for 20 years, it's too late. Well, 20 years has gone by. They could have had the whole thing paid for and been in the country, except they didn't. And so they aren't. When you start moving, do everything you can to move. God will make a way. Things will happen. So now that you're in a little town, and maybe you're still um, renting there, that's okay. Find someone who's doing country things. Find someone, and you'll run into people at, maybe there's a feed store close by. Maybe there's people doing gardening. You can look on Facebook. Maybe there's, different people. There's, go to some of the local churches. Maybe there's some people around who are trying to do country living as well, and learn from them. Find a garden. Find a place that you can grow some veggies and just start getting some of these skills. Even if it's not a full garden, let's say you're still in the city, start getting tools. Maybe not big tools, but you can get small tools. Maybe you can start getting knowledge, getting books. You can, all of these things. We were told that the wise are looking after knowledge. And we need to become wise in all of these different skills that we're needing for raising your own produce, all of these things. If you're in the city, buy some produce, figure out how to preserve it. Maybe you're going to learn how to can things. Okay, that was a terrible picture of a jar, so I'm just going to erase it. Maybe you learn how to dehydrate. Maybe, learn some of these different skills, because you can do that anywhere you are. Even if you just set time aside to watch our How to Country channel, HTC, How to Country. Learn some of the things there. At least it's starting to be imprinted in your mind. It's not the same thing as doing it, because doing it is totally different. You can watch how to rebuild an engine, but if you don't actually do it, and it's a very different concept. Okay. So I kind of want to go to some of the questions, because there's quite a few questions. I want to answer those. And if any of you have more specific things on what are some of the step-by-step process that we can go through to get you from city to country, this is really important. Okay. We're going to go to some questions. Okay. And I'm sorry it's getting late on the East Coast, quite late for a lot of you guys. Sarah X. Noel. Question, in Revelation 18, 1-3, for September 11, 2001, is that when the sealing of them was done and the judgment started for everyone else started? No, that's when the judgment of the living began. That's not when the sealing was finished. That's when the sealing started. So if we look on our timeline here, and what we're referencing here is several things. Revelation 18, verse 1-3, and we maybe can go into this more in another study. And Revelation 7. Okay? So 2001 is when Revelation 18, 1-3 began. And this was the start of the sealing / judgment of the living. And I know a lot of people are going to be screaming right now, saying, how can you prove this? And there's many places. Go look up Isaiah 30, verse 22-25. There's many different places. Even Ezekiel 37. A lot of people don't recognize what's happening in there, but the four winds are talked about, and the four winds are actually referenced in Revelation 7. So there's a lot of connection there. The sealing and the judgment of the living started. So who is this? That's why I put Revelation 7 here, because it is the sealing and judgment of the living of the 144,000. Okay? This special group that is going to give what's called the loud cry. Okay? I hope that answers your question, at least gives you a little bit of direction here. You need to read all of these verses to piece it together, but these four winds, Revelation 7, also Jeremiah, let me think here. Oops, I have a tear in my Bible here. Okay, let me find it. Jeremiah. Need to remember what chapter it is. Okay, Jeremiah chapter 4. Jeremiah 4. And you can read a lot of the chapter, but all the way down at least to 13. 1 to 13. Okay? At least 1 to 13.
I'm jumping in because she's staying at the special for this.
Okay.
She says, yes, we were trying to make sure we understood that. So that is when the 144,000 were sealed and judgment of the living started.
This is when the 144,000 started the sealing process, started the judgment process. They are not sealed yet, because there is a Spirit of Prophecy quote that says that the sealing, and remember, Revelation chapter 7, because everything has to be from the Bible. Revelation 7. After these things, this is verse 1, Revelation 7:1. I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth. Here's the four winds. That the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor any tree. Skip down to verse 3, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the tree, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So once the sealing is completely finished, then the four winds blow. So the sealing, let me go to my other time. You know what? I can do it here. We'll just zoom out a little bit. We're going to move this right here. And we're going to continue ahead. Okay. And we have the mark of the beast. No buy, no sell. This has to take place. The mark of the beast has to take place to complete the sealing process. They have to go through this test. Once they go through this test, they can be sealed. They have to go through the shaking, through the winnowing, through the marking, everything else. And once the shaking is completely done, the stamp can be put on. That is pure wheat because we know the sifting has been completed. And this is when that finalizes. I wish I had the quote. Let me see here if I can find it really quickly for you. And remember what the sealing is. The sealing is a settling into the truth. Let me read it here. Okay. Just, you know what? I'm gonna, maybe I'll share my screen here, the other screen. There, this is what we'll do. Okay. Just as soon, I'll make this bigger. Just as soon as the people of God are sealed in their foreheads, it is not any seal or mark that can be seen, but a settling into the truth, both intellectually and spiritually. Remember, that's what we were talking about. This whole process of losing fear, intellectual and spiritually settled, so they cannot be moved. Just as soon as God's people are sealed, which is a settling into the truth, which means they have the truth of the final events. That's why we're in the sealing process, because people are learning about the true final events of Bible prophecy. Once we fully understand this, and once we're settled spiritually, mentally, physically, and prepared for the shaking, it will come. Indeed, it has begun already. So the shaking has started. But once it is ending, the sealing process ends because they are fully sealed. Now, let me go to seal. Let me see if I can find this quickly. Hopefully I can find the right one. The Lord has shown me clearly that the image of the beast will be formed before probation closes, for it is the great test. And if you're being tested, that means you're not sealed yet. You have to go through the testing process in order to give the stamp. The great test for the people of God is shown to be Sunday law enforcement for the... Okay, this is image of the two-horned beast. I need to go to the original. I really do not like last day events. Okay, we're going to go to selected messages. The Lord has shown me clearly that the image of the beast will be formed before probation closes, for it is to be the great test for the people of God, by which their eternal destiny will be decided. So once this image is formed, once the mark of the beast is showing up, that will be the final test and the final close of the sealing process. And if you pass that test, now you are ready for the next events that are going to happen. So I hope that helps answer your question there. I'll go back to my whiteboard. Thank you very much for your question. Hope that cleared up some things. Okay. Okay. Question. How do we know when we are in the ark and safe before probation, before the door is shut? Will we know when the door is shut? Great question. Okay. In the typology that you're referring to, there was this giant boat, right? And there was a door in the side of the boat. And Noah and his family went inside of the boat. Did they know they were in the boat when they walked in the boat? And the answer is yes. So can you know? Well, absolutely yes, because the ark is our country property that is prepared to weather the storm of events that are going to hit the earth. So are you in your ark? Are you ready for the events? Then you know that you're in the ark. Okay? When the door shut, there was a door here. Sorry, there's a delay on my pen. And when that door shut, do you think Noah knew the door shut? He could see that the door was shut. So he knew right away that door is shut. The angel came and shut the door. Now, we just read that the events connected to the close of probation are clearly presented. So does that mean that we're going to know when probation closes and when the door is shut? 100% we'll know. Now, you'll only know if you have been watching unto prayer and if you've been studying your Bible. Then you will 100% know when the close of probation is and what events lead up to that. There's one key. There's more than one key. There's a lot of keys. Okay. Some of the biggest ones is Revelation 15 and 16. The chapters 15 and 16. These talk about when that time is closed. Also, Revelation 14, verse 9 to 12 talks about that time. Also, Revelation 18 talks about that time. And there's another very contentious. Daniel 11, verse 45, that talks about that time. And then Daniel 12, verse 1. And these two are interconnected. We're going to go over all of these things in another study, but the answer is absolutely emphatically yes to both. Okay. A.J. Friedberg. Question: how did the pioneers understand the no-by-no cell, plagues, so many things that had not happened yet at the return of Christ, disappointment time? Some things in Revelation just hadn't taken place yet. Did the pioneers think they had taken place? This is a fantastic question. Why is it a fantastic question? Because we're told that these things have been clearly presented, which means that they understood them. Well, how did they understand them? Etc. Okay. Whew, that's a big question. Because there's a lot of aspects to this. There's things that they understood about the final events that will shock you that they knew. This is why they were Philadelphia. They really did understand extremely well. They made one fatal error, which was that they spiritualized the sanctuary instead of literalized it because it was literal. I'm not going to get into all of that, but what did they understand? Okay. There is something called the 1843 chart. And this was put together by the conference. Okay? And it was a unanimous vote that our church needs to make a prophetic chart with all the things of Daniel, the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation on it. So that's what they did. That vote took place in 1842. 1842. If you take a look at that chart, the things on there are absolutely incredible. A little while later, there was another chart made, and it's called most people call it the 1850 chart. Okay? I call it the Ellen White chart because she had a vision to make this chart and was shown all the imagery that should go onto this chart. What is on this chart would be so far beyond what most people understand about the final events, they wouldn't even comprehend it. I'll give you a couple examples. And did they understand these things? So you asked about no buy, no sell, plagues, all of this. The answer is yes, and way better than you and me understand it. We'll get into some of that. I mean, but their understanding was absolutely incredible on the layout of the final events. I mean, we have, and everybody knows some of these guys, A.T. Jones, and how he fought the Blair's Bill. Blair's Bill. This was in 1888. And then they had country living message already. This was something that these guys were preparing for and that these people were doing. That, you know, all the schools from early on were teaching agriculture as like the number one important thing because they seen the events that were actually going to happen. The funny thing is, in the mid 1800s, it was like absurd to think that America would make a religious liberty law to stop people from buying or selling, because that was exactly the opposite of what America was about. It was against making religious laws. And so everybody was like, this is totally impossible, but we're going to preach it because the Bible says so. And they were looked at as crazy people. Now it's not so crazy. But back then, it was absolutely crazy to even suggest things like this. So country living, yes. The plagues, they fully understood the plagues way better than you or I understood them. I mean, we can go and we can look and we can study, and now we can see even more clearly. But what they had, leaps and beyonds what people understand now. On that 1850 chart, I'm going to put EGW chart. They have something on there. Well, first they have the image of the beast. I should say, I mean, I say they because it was several people who helped actually put it together. Ellen White instructed it. Otis Nichols went into that as well. So the image of the beast, but there's something very fascinating here, because they talk about Revelation 17, she puts on there, in connection with this, and that the 10 kings in Revelation 17, and I'm sorry if this is going over some people's heads, we're going to actually talk about this in a later study, is connected to the image of the beast. Not only that, that the 7 last plagues is the third woe. Now, this is like probably mind-blowing for a lot of people. We're going to get into this in another study, but what they understood was incredible. When I seen this, that's why we're supposed to go to the old paths, the foundations of many generations, the light from behind. You know, there's the vision of the path, and everyone's going up the path. There was a light from behind shining all along the path, and the angel says that that is the midnight cry. Well, right here, this is the true midnight cry. It's actually a pamphlet that was made called the True Midnight Cry. And this is that message. The midnight cry message is the light from behind. If we understand this and we understand what they seen, it's going to shine light on everything. I could go on and on that one, but that's such a big question. Thank you for the question. Okay. Diana Carter, question for AD. Is there a timeline of events that we can view or print, or will it be explained in this episode? Thank you. We're still working on, it's a lot of work to put together a full timeline of events with all the references and all the proofs, but we've been working on for quite a while. I've been working on it for years, but we're starting to get it together. So as we go through this series, that will be available for everyone. Okay. Sarah Miranda, question: why do you make a time prediction based off how long Noah was in the ark, but do the same with why do you make a time prediction based off of how long Noah was in the ark, but do the same with Esther? In her story, the death decree took 11 months from when it was issued till it went into effect. I don't know if you maybe mean don't do the same with Esther. I don't do any time prediction based on Noah's ark because I believe that time is no longer. And that means that no time can be calculated from Noah or Esther or any of these. These are examples, 100% they're examples, but we cannot use them to predict because we're in this time frame called time no longer. Up until right here, October 22, 1844, the Bible in Revelation 10, verse, I think it's 6, it's close to there anyways, says time no longer. And this doesn't mean that time completely stops. It means prophetic time when you look at it. So prophetically, we always say that we're in the Day of Atonement. And we are in that day until that day closes. And that day started October 22. So we're still in October 22 right now, prophetically, until the close of probation, because then that day ends. And then we go to October 23 and time starts again. This might be a huge concept for some people, but inside this time gap, and we're somewhere here, right here somewhere, there is no time. So we do not know how long time will be. Maybe what you're referencing is, I talked about 15 days. Maybe this is what you're talking about. And this is the thing. After probation closes, time resumes. And the Bible doesn't ever give us any time predictions between 1844 and the close of probation. It just says no buy, no sell. It says mark of the beast. But then as soon as probation closes and time resumes again, it says in one day their plagues will fall. It says they're going to have power for 1 hour, and all of this time factoring that goes into play again. But that's only after probation closes can we start calculating that. Before then, there is no calculation. So that's what I see the Bible saying, that we don't have a time frame. All I know is that we have to be able to raise our provisions and weather this process of time. Okay. Quirky Glashy something. Question from New Zealand. Welcome from New Zealand. Why do we need to leave our properties and run into the mountains when the death decree comes if our properties are being protected by angels during the no buy, no sell time? Because, again, this is the incredible thing about God. I'm going to draw this so that we understand the process here. Okay. So this is us right here. And we're trying to make it all the way to heaven. We have to go through this particular process to prove God and to prove our characters. So right now, it's just our regular test of life. And then eventually we're going to hit this no buy, or sell. And the amazing thing about that is we're going to be entirely cut off from the world. We're not going to have internet. We're not going to have any of these bad influences. And it's going to allow us to actually be cleansed so that when we hit the close of probation, we have been purified to the point and we've had all distractions removed. This is actually mercy on God's people, because he sees we have too much distraction, too much temptation. And he's telling us, you know what? I'm going to help you out. I'm going to make it so you can't even get that stuff if you wanted to. So he's going to do that. Then probation closes. And then we have to go through something called Jacob's trouble. So right now, how can I describe this? World us/God God. Okay? And this is like the latter process of reliance. So right now we're very reliant on the world, and we trust the world to go to the grocery store every day and that the lights will turn on. We have this trust and reliance. Then God strips that away and he's like, you know what? It has to be just you and me. Yeah, we're going to partner. You're going to now, it's going to be reliant on you growing and this and obedience to me and preparing. And then, you know what? We have to take this one step further where you have no involvement and it's 100% me. And God's very merciful in that step-by-step process. So this actually purifies us and helps to perfect our character in this entire process. And this is why at a certain point, also, what's going to happen is, and I know this is really hard for people to understand. It's such a simple idea, but it's so hard because we've been full of nonsense for so long, myself included. For some reason, the last day events, we spiritualize them. instead of literalized. So when we look at the plagues, we just see like spiritual things happening, and it doesn't really have an effect except, no buy, no sell. Well, that one's literal, and death decree is literal. But why is the death decree happening? Is because of literal things. Why is nobody else happening? Because of literal things. Why did they do a death decree at that moment? And why do we have to flee at that moment? Why do the plagues not affect us? All of this is for physical reasons, not just because God puts a bubble and the plagues don't fall on us. It's because we're not where the plagues are falling. This is the thing. And when we start going through this whole process, you're going to see how judgment comes to the cities first. Okay? So I'm just going to depict it like this. Like a flaming ball is going to fly at this city, okay? And then there's going to be fields, right? Where people are trying to grow stuff, but it's all dead. It's all just dead stuff all throughout the field. Why? Because of the plagues. But here's the thing. What are the plagues? Are they just like some magical thing God rains down? They're actually not. They're things that he's allowing to happen in the world that are actually affecting real world scenarios. So then, because the plagues are falling on these croplands, I'm going to put that here, cropland, and we're going to discuss the plagues in another study. Cropland, this causes something called famines. And then after the famines get to a certain point, they are realizing, hey, all these things are falling. Then Satan comes and says, who is impersonating Christ, there's one thing that you guys have to do you haven't done yet, which is why the plagues are falling. And we need to kill these people. And that will stop everything. And they're already starving. They're already total economic collapse, war and war and war. And now there's nothing left. The cities are being destroyed. And the only thing they're going to do is go after God's people. So now they pronounce a death decree. And they go after God's people. And then God's people start running into the wilderness. Okay? Up the mountains. Here's the mountain here, And then God opens up a cave in the mountain. And we go hide in that cave, and et cetera, et cetera. This whole process here is 15 days. It's a 15-day process of Jacob's trouble, where we're wrestling with God day and night. And we have to go through that experience. We have to go through the same thing that Jacob went through, that Israel went through. His name was Israel, right? And we are the last day Israel, God's people, and we have to go through this final cleansing process. So hopefully that gave you some answer to the question. I'm going to have to start really speeding up. We have a lot of questions. Okay. Diana Carter, question. Are there 2 times of trouble, little time of trouble, and big time of trouble? Okay. 2 troubles. Is this biblical, Ellen Whiteical, anything elsecal? And unfortunately, the phraseology is no, because you're not going to find each of these phrases. But there is 2 times of trouble. So if we want to use the phrase little time of trouble, we can. I prefer to say what the Bible says and just say no buy, no sell. So this is, whoops, no sell. This is what I would call the first time of trouble. And then the second is the full time of trouble. And this is what is talked about in Daniel 12, verse 1. The full catastrophe here. Now, even in this time of trouble, there is multiple phases. So there's the first phase, which is the plagues falling. And it's only trouble for the wicked. And then the second phase is Jacob's trouble. And this is a time of trouble for God's people. And they're doing different things. So yes, there's different stages of the time of trouble. Little does not denote short, and big does not denote long. It defines intensity. So when we say little or small time of trouble, that doesn't mean that it's short. It means that it's less intense. So the intensity is rising as we go through here all the way to the second coming. Okay, next question. I will stand upon my watch. Question: how to encourage others the sense of urgency in preparing in a reasonable amount of time and make the final move to the country property to begin preparing. It's only the truth that convicts, and the Holy Spirit that convicts. We present the truth and let the truth do the working. That's what we're doing here right now, and that's the only thing you can do. The other thing you can do is do it. Show them. Do everything in your power that you can this minute, whether it's going someplace to learn. We have our farm apprenticeship program. Guys, you should be here learning these things. You can be here. It's an open opportunity for you to come and learn how to do this stuff. You need to encourage by sharing the truth and let the truth do the convicting, and just keep sharing the truth and encouraging them, and then do it yourself. Okay. I'm really sorry, but the name from Quebec, I definitely don't speak French very well. Question: I would like to have the reference to prove that it is at the sixth plague that we will have to leave our property in the country. Thank you for these studies. Okay, so this, there's a few different things. And one is from 3 selected messages. No, that's spiritual gifts. 3 spiritual gifts. Sorry. 131.1, third spiritual gifts. Jacob and Esau represent 2 classes: Jacob the righteous and Esau the wicked. Jacob's distress when he learned that Esau was marching against him with 400 men represent the trouble of the righteous as the decree goes forth to put them to death. And you can continue down the quote. There's a lot more where that comes from. I'm sorry, I have to rush. It's getting very late for many people, and there's still a few questions. Then there's another one here in Life Sketches. I'm just going to put the acronym. Life Sketches 65.1. Soon we heard a voice of God like many waters, which gave us the day and hour of Jesus coming. The living saints, 144,000 number, knew and understood the voice, while the wicked thought it was thunder and an earthquake. When God spoke the time, he poured upon the Holy Ghost, and our faces began to light up and shine with the glory of God, as Moses did when he came down from Mount Sinai. Then, if we go to early writings, page 273. And thank you, Jacob, for grabbing some of these quotes. Soon I heard the voice of God, which shook the heaven and the earth. There was a mighty earthquake. Buildings were shaken down on every side. I heard a voice, a triumphant shout of victory, loud, musical, and clear. I looked up at the company who, a short time before, were in such distress and bondage their captivity was turned. So this concept of Jacob's trouble and the death decree is why this is right at the end. This is the final time, the final hour that this struggle is going to take place. And this is the hour of trial. Okay? This is also in 1 hour her judgments come. And in Ezekiel 4 verse 6, a day equals a year, and an hour is a 24th of a day, which would mean that 1 hour actually is 15 days in prophetic time. Okay. Warrior for God. Question: I just wonder how much time we have left to move. Be prepared. I feel like things will start happening fast. Absolutely, they're going to happen fast. They've been happening fast, and God will still help you get ready. We will have, some people have to learn a few months, what took others years. It's taken me decades to learn these things. But that does not mean that you're not going to be ready. That means that people like me want to help you be ready faster with the knowledge and the trials and the failures that I have had, which are many, many, many that I can't even explain in a whole presentation how many mistakes I've made. But you have time. If you pray and you act now, God will help you. Nobody should ever tell you it's too late. Gina Reisner, question: what if you are on disability or in subsidized housing? Again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but God knows all of our situations. Paul was in prison, the doors swung open. God can do miraculous healing if he has to. If you have to work at some of these things, if you don't have the money, God will send someone who says, hey, come, I will take you. That is the job of the rest of the church family, is to help these people and help people who need help. And God will do that for you. If you pray, there's no need to fear. God will give you exactly what you need in the moment you need it, as long as you are studying and you are praying and you are staying close to him. He will help you in the exact way that you need it, exactly when you need it. So do not fear, do not be dismayed. God will provide. I firmly believe that. Manuel, question: when we will be fully sanctified and being not tempted anymore by the devil? Here's the funny thing: the wicked will be tempted as long as time lasts, and they'll be deceived as long as time lasts. For us, the devil is going to want to tempt us with things. He's going to test us with things, but we will not submit to those things, and we will not consider those things. And that happens when probation closes. When that's what we're looking towards. When is this time because we need to start preparing our character, and we can't do our character without doing the physical preparations. You know, the more you act, your mind gets stronger too. And by putting yourself in these situations, not being too indolent to learn the experience needed to go through the time of trouble, that is the process. Um, Only when we're removed from the earth and the devil is completely gone, um, will we not be tempted by the devil again. But that doesn't mean that we will succumb to these temptations or they'll affect us in that way. Five whys. Question: when is the loud cry given? The loud cry is given by the 144,000. The loud cry is given during the mark of the beast. And the final loud cry is, "Come out of her, my people, and don't take the mark of the beast." So this is once, these things start actually happening, and we're preparing for this. We're getting our country property ready, just like Noah. And then we're telling people, get in the ark, come join me, don't take the mark of the beast and receive of the plagues. This is the loud cry thing. And here's the events that are going to lead to the close of probation. This one just happened. This one just happened. You have moments to make your decision. Get on God's side. So the loud cry is given once these things really start kicking into high gear, and God has a select group that are standing for the truth. Okay. Warrior for God question. I have a question about the 10 kings who gives their power to the beast. Who are these? Oh, can you have you subscribed to the newsletter? Please do. I want to answer this question. I can't answer it today in a reasonable amount of time. We've been going 3 hours. My voice is drying out. I would love to answer, but I'm going to have to ask you to come back again. We will do a whole presentation, a series of presentations on the 10 kings, and it will be what was clearly presented. Nothing new. I didn't make anything up. We're going by the old paths and the foundations that were laid. Now, if you want a sneak preview, go and go to the Judgment Day documentary website, judgmentdaydocumentary.com. No. judgmentdaydocumentary.com. Yes. On there, you can download the charts. Download the 1850 chart. Go on the bottom right-hand corner, and you're going to see the 10 kings. And it's going to give you some pretty good hints about that. That's Ellen White's chart. Okay, one more question for the evening. Cheryl Adams, how will we know about the death decree if we are cut off from all worldly communication, internet, etc.? Great question. How are we going to know? Because the final events are way more obvious than you think. And the things that are going to take place are going to be loud, and they're going to be very noticeable by even you and me. We are working the people this whole time, giving the loud cry. It's going to be an extremely obvious time that we're living in. And when we start really discussing the events connected with the close of probation, it's going to become a lot more clear why it's so obvious, and why we're going to be so blessed and like kings and queens being in our ark, in our country property, because those events leading up to that close of probation event is not pretty, and it's going to be very terrifying for the wicked, because they have not heeded the warning that God gave. Now, we, I'm going to have to do a whole presentation on like what you need to do, how you're going to go into the country, because we didn't even really get to this. But I really hope um, that this gave you a lot of encouragement and removed your fears about the final events. Okay, there's no reason to be fearful, especially because we're going through the events right now. And once you see the full layout of these events, there's no need to fear. You'll know what to do. You know how to begin. You know how to start. What's the first thing? And the first thing I would do right now is start learning and start asking questions. Go places that you can learn. See people doing it who've done it. Now, at some point, I'm going to really have to give a lot of my testimony, because I have seen and done a lot of things, and that's why I'm so passionate about sharing it, because it's costed me a lot. And when I read that Noah put all his effort and money into the ark, that's been my experience. All my money's going into the ark. And people wonder, because I've talked about, I have some animals, and these have been, this process of learning how to be self-sufficient has been my whole focus. Besides studying, the events, doing that, I have done things that most people would not do, and tested things that most people would not do. We had our garden, and then a bridge washed out where our garden was. And then we had to drive an hour and a half from Amazing Discoveries every single day, one way, in order to get to our garden, and then come back, and then back, and then back. And we did that for an entire year, and or for quite a bit of the year. You have to be willing to do things that other people are not in order to get ready. And I'm okay, doing some of the process so that you guys don't have to. I'm okay with failing. I've been okay with failing my entire life, because I know that on the other side of failure is being able to contemplate how we can do things differently and do things better. And that's the only way that we're going to get through this, is figure out what doesn't work so that we can find out what does work. I wish I could continue with everybody more, because I see that there's more comments coming in, but we're gonna have to wrap it up for the evening. It's right now, just for an update for everybody, we have the garden going in full swing. We have over 700 squash and pumpkin plants going in. It's a good part of an acre of squash that we're putting in. We put at least over an acre of potatoes in, 2 acres of grain. And this is by hand, guys. I mean, we're planting all these squash pretty much by hand. Well, it is by hand. We're putting them physically in the ground by hand. The potatoes, planted an acre by hand. And 1,200 tomato plants we have started. Several hundred pepper plants. 500 heads of lettuce a week we're starting right now. And yes, these are numbers bigger than, especially the lettuce, 500 heads of lettuce, than people need. But how much do you need? This is what most people have no idea. I was listening to a presentation this morning, and I was shaking my head, because the person talking about agriculture had never really done it. They never really lived it. They never really experienced growing enough food to survive an entire year. They never did it. They had a third of an acre of garden, and they're talking about like the number of carrots they grew. I grew carrots. I'm not counting on how many carrots I've grown. It's in it's in pounds. It's not in number of carrots because it's too big a number to count the carrots. And that's how we have to be measuring. Like, you need people of experience who've done this for a long time. When I was thinking about getting into oxen, because we're not going to have tractors, we won't have fuel, we won't be able to repair them, do oil changes, do fixes, all this stuff, and thinking, okay, what do we need to do here? I went to people who had experience, who are literally farming with oxen full time, and took time to drive, to go to and learn and spend days with these people. And that's how we have to do it. If you want a vacation, go someplace to learn these skills. That's what you need to be doing. And that's how we're going to be prepared. And that's how we're going to be confident to share with others. And people will see that. Oh, he's the guy with the oxen. Oh, he's the guy. There's no way they're growing food in this area. People were laughing when we said we're going to grow a garden here, because nobody grows gardens here, like almost no one. And it's a rock bed. Like, if I showed you, and I'll show you at one day, the pictures of what it looked like, you would think it was a quarry, not a garden. And there was a lot of effort and elbow grease that went into getting everything to the place it is. And now it's absolutely gorgeous. And we grow amazing produce, and it's only from the grace of God. And, but that's what obedience would do. I was a seasoned gardener for years. I went and did training for gardening. I have a certificate in soil microbiology, and I can look at the soil under a microscope. And then I came here and had my garden fail 3 years in a row. Most people who have their garden fail once or kill a tomato plant are going to give up. But even me, with experience, coming from a different area, the weather was different, this was different, the soil was different. And, so you learn these things. Now, being in different areas and growing in different areas, I'm confident that I would grow in most areas now. But it takes this process of failure and persisting. Okay, failed that year. I put in a 2-acre garden and everything died. Literally got like 2 pea pods off of it. And then again, and almost lost everything. Put in, I don't know if it was 500,000 pounds of garlic, all died. And this is my money, my time, because I'm putting everything into the ark. And that's the only way to learn. And I feel okay making those mistakes instead of my money going and being blown doing something that's not for God and not helpful to anyone and not preparing and not being able to teach people how to do things. If we're in obedience, there's no fear. God will fill in the rest. Thank you so much. Don't have a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind. God bless. Have a good evening. Have a good new week. And whatever questions you have, contact our team, message us, do whatever you need to do, and start learning, start studying. If you want a good place to start, I highly recommend you get this little booklet. There's a couple little booklets here. Thoughts Exposing Deceptions on Daniel and the Revelation. This is a booklet that we put together because there's so many questions about the book Daniel and Revelation by Uriah Smith. Please get this, give it a read. Another one about the history is Waymarks and High Heaps. This is a fantastic book, and it goes over the early history that people are not talking about. The True Midnight Cry, I highly recommend. Get this, give it a read. And then another one by A.T. Jones called The Eastern Question, and how this thing plays into Bible prophecy. God bless and have a good night. We'll see you in the next study.